send it over.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm not sure how I cannot send it to Facebook.
All right, folks. I think
okay.
we are live.
It's on.
All right. Well, thank you, Nguyen, and hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to VA USA, which stands for Vietnamese American Uniform. Make sure all the recording is good here. Again, welcome again to our VA USA Education Series. And we are, once again, we want to provide this service to our community, to everybody on our Facebook, on our community. And so we would like to share this throughout everybody that are either deployed or here in CONUS as well. So VA USA, what is it? And we all just want to give you guys a bit of background here. VA USA is Vietnamese American Uniform Service Association. And what we do is really unique. We are a group of people, human beings, that come together for from various different backgrounds, from very different armed services serving the United States, in government agency and also in defense agencies, in other agencies across the U.S. And what we come together is we honor the past, the present, and the future of our leaders, sons and daughters of America. So we are a military association comprised of Vietnamese American who are current or former military members from all the branches, to include our most recent, the U.S. Space Force. And we are united together by the bonds of respect and selfless service. And this is one of the series that we want to provide to our community. Now we also come together to host a gala in October, which we will go into that further. But every year we have special events, Operation Taste from Home, where we package foods and send to our service member serving overseas or far away. We also have other activities, 5Ks, community events where with this past year, we provide a COVID support to our communities. Our mission is to share military experiences with the Vietnamese American community in order to instill pride into the community, and also provide a service where folks want to enter the U.S. Armed Services, and we provide that information. Now, to our members, we provide professional development, mentorship, esprit de corps, networking, and also be there for more support. We also support the Gold Star and also Blue Star families. Very, very important aspect of our program. And we provide support to our families and their members as well. So as part of our yearly program, we provide an education series. Our first of the series were a few months ago, where we provide information on how to enter the U.S. Army through via West Point as an officer or as a cadet. And then we provide information on programs, on scholarships, on retirement, on benefits, military benefits, Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and now we want to provide another education series where we provide. Now, folks, we get questions a lot. We get folks asking, how do I become a warrant officer in the United States Armed Forces? Now, let's say I say for armed forces is Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and other services as well, to include the Space Force. Now, all of these branches have warrant officers. So warrant officer plays a significant role, and today we'll learn more about that. But I don't want to steal the thunder of Anh Phu, but I'll introduce him in a little bit. But to dive into what a warrant officer is, in my mind, is that the warrant officer is a technical, single-tracked specialty officer. I mean, hopefully we've all been in units where we see warrant officers and we call them chief. so in most of my units, I call them chief. Even in high school, I have a warrant officer retired that served as an instructor of an ROTC program, and we still call them chief. So chief is a universal term for warrant officers, but they play a very specific role. While these officers are authorized by Congress, and they are very specialized, and we'll get to learn more about them in a little bit, and how we get into the ranks, how we how they are educated, how they grow up, how they become leaders of our armed forces, and again, and so if you have the aspiration to join the warrant officer corps, this is the place to be to learn more about that. So let me introduce to everybody Anh Phu. Anh Phu Trần. He is currently a full-time recruiter out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. As an Army soldier, obviously, when we introduce the warrant officer program, it's pretty much universal across the Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force as well. He is in the Army for 11 years. Prior to that, he was a geospatial engineer, so a very smart man. And so today we'll get a presentation from him to find out how does it take to become a warrant officer in, well, right now we're speaking Army specific, but certainly I think it's universal across the armed forces as well. So with no further ado, let's welcome Anh Phu.
All right, thank you for the introduction, and I hope everybody's listening and at home and have somewhere quiet because there's a lot of information. So my actual title is Sergeant First Class Tran from the Warrant Officer Recruiting Company, and we're just going to go over the Warrant Officer application brief. So this brief itself is going to include the basic eligibility to include sister services, and kind of about how the process starts and how to contact somebody in regards to any questions you have. So we'll start. So what is the warrant officer recruiting mission? Basically finding the technical elite. And as you can see in the slide, we have all branches of service. So if you're in the Army Reserve, National Guard, or any of the sister service to include their Reserve, active duty, National Guard components, that's who we recruit for. In terms of reference, there is two different parts of the warrant officer cohort. So for the only one branch is aviators, and their one branch specialty, and 153 is the rotary aviator, and it's open to all MOSs and ranks. So if you're E1 to E9 and open to also commissioned officers that they can apply. And the requirement is passing a SIP score 40 or higher, and you can take that to your local education center or anywhere that administrators that. Just to keep in mind, once you score 40 on a SIP score, it's your forever score. You get 2 times to take the tests. There's a 46-day waiting period between. So if you fail it a second time, aviation is no longer a path for you in the warrant officer cohort. You must pass a Class 1 flight physical at your military treatment facility. And now we'll move on to technicians. So this is where it gets a little bit more different. So there's 17 branches, 46 specialties. Usually requirement is sergeant or higher with AOC, or if you're in a sister service, your leadership school to obtain E5 to E6, E7. And you'll notice in each warrant officer field, there's a MOS prerequisites for each. Now, one thing to note is there is no time on station, time on station requirement for Army. What that means is if you are at Fort Bragg or you just showed up, if you're applying for aviation, you've been in your unit for 1 day, and you're at Fort Bragg, you can drop your warrant officer packet. The only time you cannot drop a warrant officer packet in the Army is if you're on drill sergeant orders. But if you're applying for, SFAS selection, if the warrant officer picks you up or while you're deployed, you will get scheduled at walk state. And walk states are usually the warrant officer candidate school can be 6 months, 9 months. All right, so just keep in mind there is no time period waiting. So if you PCS, you're in Germany for a week, and you decide to drop your warrant officer packet, there is no wait time. And we'll get more into that further in the slides. I'll leave it up right now. If anybody has any questions, I can answer. If not, we will move to the following slide. All right, moving on. So defining a warrant officer, everybody can read this slide, but the main thing is to take away is when you look at these job titles, combat leader, trainer, advisor, technical experts, these are things that are expected of a warrant officer. So later on when you write your resume, just keep in mind some of these job titles and make sure you transfer your skills into these job titles as you explain it in your resume. So as the breakdown of the warrant officer ranks, you have the W1, which is the basic level, and you have your field grade, which is CW3 to CW5. And as a W1, you'll get promoted within 2 years to CW2, but we're going to get more into the promotion system in a later slide. And this is an overview of defining a warrant officer. So applicant characteristics, what to look for, and a lot of this is in your letters of recommendation, your resume. These are things that you want to articulate and also display to the board members that these are qualities that you have: self-confident, mature, self-sufficient, mentally and physically strong. But we'll move on to the next slide on this. So one of the great things about unique assignments for the warrant officer cohort is just the same thing as enlisted. We have training with industry. You can be an instructor, like a TAC officer also. So that's like the equivalent to being a drill sergeant, but for the warrant officer field. You can serve in the one and only warrant officer recruiting company, one company for entire Army. Our company is made of 23 people. And that's something you can apply to once you're a senior CW2, and you can apply for that if that's something in your aims. Any questions? All right. So here's the promotion timeline. So we'll start in the bottom. So everybody starts as a W1. Everybody gets promoted to CW2 except for aviators. They just changed it. So after 2 years, you get automatically promoted to CW2. But there's a new Army directive that for aviation, you will not pin CW2 until you complete your flight school. So really, your first 2 years in the warrant officer cohort, you make it through flight school. Then you have to wait 2 years serving that probational period before you're able to get promoted to CW2. And then from CW2 to CW5, it's about 4 to 5 years between each rank. On the tech side, it's 2 years time and grade. You're automatically getting promoted to CW2, and then 4 to 5 years. 4 to 5 years time and grade. And for aviators and 170 Delta, that's the cyber. It takes a little bit longer. They're 5 to 6 years in promotion due to the fact the training is longer. So aviation is 18 months, and also cyber is about 18 months as well. So just keep in mind that that's the reason they have a slower promotion time and grade. Any questions here? All right. So the main thing to look at the slide is what I found out when I came to the company. If you look into the right-hand side, as the warrant officer, they can serve up to 30 years additional service or the age of 62, whichever comes first. Because at age 62, you can't collect Social Security and retirement and then still serve. But if you look for someone like myself, Sergeant First Class, 24 years RCP, after 24 years, I have to get out the Army. And one of the reasons why they keep warrant officers so long is just because of the an enormous amount of experience they have, but also as they emerge with technology, they're also training the future generations of warrant officers and making them, technical experts within their field. Any questions here? All right. So base pay comparison is not always about money, but we got kids, we got bills. Somebody has a Tesla, whatever reason it is, but it's always good to have extra money. So the the average person that usually applies to the warrant officer program is usually E5 with 6 years time in service. So if you're looking at basic comparison at the snapshot on the bottom, it's about $1,000 difference. And if you look at field grades, you're looking at between an E7 versus a W3, it's almost 1,000 and some change. And if you look down the path of retirement, it could be $500,000 when you retire, difference between enlisted. So just keep that in mind. And a lot of times people say, I don't want to apply to become a warrant officer because if I'm an E7 or E6, I might lose my money because I make more money than W1. So here's the facts. There is something called safe pay. So if I am an E6, once I make it through walks, I pin W1. If my base pay as enlisted is higher than the W1 pay or warrant officer pay, I will keep my enlisted pay. Now, you might lose some money if you're BAH as a enlisted versus W1 or warrant officer. If it's lower, like W1 is lower than enlisted, you might lose a couple $100. But for the most part, if you're E6, you're not going to lose money. But once you get E7 to E9, you'll definitely have some issues there. And just note that as a commissioned officer applying to the warrant officer program, you will resign your commission, which also means that you will be coming in the Army as a W1. And after that, it's between HRC and accessions when you actually are a W2. So commissioned officers will skip walks because if you came from any officer producing school, you will not have to attend walks. All right, so with the pay and the pinning, W1 is between HRC and accession and the branch. Any questions here? All right. So part of the incentive pay for aviation, this is also known as flight pay. As you progress and get familiar to aircraft, become a technical expert. For example, over 2 years, this is an additional monthly base pay of $200 you're getting. Just note for the ATSO, active duty service obligation, for aviation is going to be 10 years, while for a technician will be 6 years. Any questions here? All right, so if you don't remember anything from this presentation, please remember gowarrantnow.com. So this is our website. It's a living document. It's always changing between boards to board. It's always getting updated. So if you're finding any information about becoming a warrant officer, don't find it anywhere else in Google or any other web pages. Use our site. This is the most updated site for forms and information you'll need and put in your packet. So where we start is, do I qualify? You click on those tabs, and then the most important one is the top 3, and then we get to when do I apply and how to apply. So if you look here, everything highlighted in red that says non-waiverable means there's no waiver. But does that stop you? If you don't have a GT of 110, then you can always go to BSEP, which is also used to be known as fast class, where you can go to the education center, and it could be a 2-month course, or just depending on your schedule, they allow you to retake your ASVAB and try to get a higher GT. Now for sister service, if you don't know if you have a GT of 110, you can contact me directly. I'm going to put my information later in the slides, but also in the comment box. So you can email me, and I'll just need to encrypt the email with your social, and I can run a red report to find out what your GT score is if you're in sister service. If you're pending a U.S. citizenship for any reason, then you cannot apply. So if you're still pending that, you're just going to have to wait till you have your U.S. citizenship. You must have a high school diploma or a GED. For clearances, for the majority of most warrant officer enlists, you must have adjudicated secret clearance. And if you're pending one, you still can't apply until you have that. And for instance, some MOSs like MI, Cyber will require you to have a TS, but it's all going to be listed on the individual MOS for the warrant officer MOS requirements. You must have 12 months remaining on your enlistment contract. So I'll give you an example. So if, let's say I'm in the Air Force, I have 9 months. Exception of policy, you can put that in, but also note that you must get with your career counselor to find out when's the last day for you to re-enlist. So if you do an exception of policy for having 12 months on your contract, in there states that if you are selected, you are willing to extend your contract. And what that means is basically, if you're coming from sister service, you'll do a release form, And that release form, you're going to go back to MEPS and process all over again. And that 368 conditional release has to take you to a walk state. And that's the whole reason between the 12 months. And if you're in the Army, same thing, right? You got to make sure you have 12 months remaining, or you'll be willing to re-enlist, extend for a year or whatever the case is to make that warrant officer candidate school date. You must pass a commissioning physical or a flight physical for aviators. So if for some reason you do need a medical waiver, that's acceptable. And you can get this all scheduled at your nearest military treatment facility. The easiest way to do it, just look up Fort Bragg or wherever you're located, commissioning physicals, and they should usually have a clinic or a hospital that does them. If you have any issues in finding them, because you might be like on recruiting duty, you might be in New Jersey or somewhere, we can assist in finding the closest place that administers that. So we're talking about the age and AFS. So for technicians, once you're 46 years old and you pin W1, you automatically need a waiver for age. Active federal service is 12 years at the time you sign your DA-61. And that's the first form that you'll sign. And all that is to tell us your AFS. So technically, if you're 11 years and 9 months and you sign a form, or 11 years, 11 months, and you sign a form this month, then that means that when we look at your packet, we see that you're at 11 years and 11 months, and you haven't hit 12 years. But once you hit 12 years and you sign it, then you automatically need a waiver. And for aviators, age 32 years at the time the packet is boarded, and 8 years at the time you sign a DA-61. All right, so don't worry about waivers and stuff. We'll get down later. The board does not see that you need an actual waiver. They won't see that. And just remember that for applying for the warrant officer board, it's not like OCS. It is a packet board. They never see you, they never hear your voice. The only thing they'll see is your packet. You must pass the standard 3-event Army physical fitness test. So if you list anything but ACFT, it's going to be invalid. The only thing we're accepting right now is a passing APFT on or before 1 October 2020. And unless there's a new Army directive about the ACFTs fully implemented, it'll be updated on our website. Now, if you are on a permanent profile or taking alternate events for APFT, ACFT, before you can even apply, you must have a general endorsement from your first chain of command. And then the second will be going through the big Army, right? And how that works is basically your unit would have to file it through the S1 and their system to get it to big Army G3, G5, G7. All right. And if you have any questions on that, that's more something I can talk to you offline more directly. Anybody have any other questions now? All right. So here's the list of warrant officer MOSs. There's 2 slides. So everything highlighted in white means that there's a direct feeder. On our website, if you're sister service, we have one for every branch. Unfortunately, we don't have one in the Space Force just yet. That hasn't come to existence, but I'm sure in time it will. So if I'm a 12 Yankee, which is 125 Delta, that's the direct feeder MOS, can I apply to 131? Just remember, it is your right to apply for any warrant officer MOS that you want, but the key word is this: you must meet the prerequisites, or you must submit a prerequisite waiver. And on the website, it's going to list all these different things, whether it be college, whether it be N2Rs, evaluations. And the people that create that, they're known as proponent. And the proponent is usually ran by a field grade warrant officer this is only 5-10% of their job in recruiting people and finding people and going through packets. But they will all eventually, any questions you have about the technical skills for that warrant officer MOS, you can contact myself or proponent, which on the website is going to be listed below, and which we'll get to in the later slides. Everything in red is critically low. So if you have any of these interests that you qualify for, you probably have a higher chance of getting picked up. Just historically, we just have lower packets, submissions for the last couple of fiscal years. And everything in green, it says all MOSs, which means that you can apply as long as you meet the prereqs. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Any questions here? If not, the only thing I want to add is that if you're junior enlisted, you're looking, or even a NCO, or looking to reclass into another MOS, look into what kind of feeds into different warrant officer MOSs, just so that if you decide to stay for the long run for 20, that you can have a lucrative career and that you can see different routes you can go within your career path. All right, and this is the second slide of all the MOSs, and two things I want to note. So if you never heard of the Defense Attaché Service, DAS, it's something you can apply and that you can work at embassies. And then if you want more information, let me know. But yeah, if you serve 3 years on that assignment, you'll get an SQI 7 right on the top, which means now you can apply to this Warrant Officer MOS. A lot of people don't know about it or the program. That's something that's, if you're looking for a broadening that you haven't done, then that's something to look into. Another common one that most people don't know is 880 Alpha Marine Deck Officer. I'm not sure if you know, but the Army has more boats than the Navy. And if you want to get stationed only in Fort Eustis and Schofield Barracks in Hawaii, that's the Marine Deck Officer. As a W1, you're in command of a vessel or a ship or a boat, however you want to say it. But your job would be working in the transportation and logistics of Army equipment and different mission sets. And 881 is Marine Engineering Officer that works with the Marine Deck Officer, pretty much does the repairs and on the ship or the vessel. But all right, any questions here? All right, so here's an example. I click on 420 Alpha, which is like Human Resources 42 Alpha in the Army. It's going to show you right here on the top that, you know, these are requirements. But if you look right there, it says be a 42 Alpha MOS AOC graduate, no waivers. Just note, if it doesn't have, you know, doesn't state no waivers, that means that it's waiverable. And you'll submit it. And the best thing to do is just get in contact with me if you have any questions about prerequisites, and I can get you in contact with Proponent. If you ever contact Proponent, you got to make sure that you have whatever prerequisite you need and any supporting documents, just in case you get a chance to talk to them and speak to them. Like I said, it's only 5 or 10% of their job of, you know, doing recruiting and going through people's packets. So the next slide is just additional prerequisites. They will list on their preferred prerequisites that will make your packet more competitive. But you know, if you don't have it, that's fine. An example of the proponent contact, when you scroll down to any Warrant Officer MOS that you click on the website, for example, this is CW4 Ray Risky. So he's the 420 Alpha proponent. So if you have any questions or anything of that nature, he's the person to contact. One thing to note, if it mentions college, a lot of times if you had a degree that is from a foreign country and it says 6 semester English, and it has to be regionally accredited, a lot of times we have people have to retake their 6 semester hours of English, but that's really up to proponent on when they review your college credits if it's listed as a requirement. You guys have any questions here? All right, moving on. All right, so we're going down to when do I apply, and this is the board schedule. So right now, the next board is coming up. It's 15 to 19 November. And these are all the board dates listed to the left. So the next block on the right-hand side, next column, is the new packet deadline. This is the final day to submit your packet. So if you submit it 20 September, that's the final day. You can always submit your packet earlier if you need waivers, or you just feel like you want peace of mind of knowing your packet is in a board-ready status, which we'll get to in a little bit. The correction deadline is going to be October 4th. I gave you corrections. You need to have it by 4 October. Once your packet is completely been through all the channel and you get a board ready status, I no longer have your packet. The special boards and program has it. So the updates deadline, 1 November, this is a separate email on our website for submission instructions on how do I apply. You'll submit new NCORs, college degrees, anything that's going to make your packet more competitive. And just note, these deadlines, you still can submit your packet if you miss the deadline, but there's no guarantee your packet will be board ready and it will be seen into that board that you're applying to. So if anything, always check our website because deadline verification extensions changes are always announced. Or sometimes a miraculous board because they're hurting on that Pacific Warrant Officer MOS, they might create a new board for that year. So if you stay on that website, it's always updated. And if there's any issues, let me know. I can talk to our webmaster to correct it. Any questions on this slide? All right, and then how do I apply? So this is the meat and potatoes. I'm gonna go through it a little more thoroughly, but just to hit the high points, just because a lot of stuff you're not going to be able to see, and it's better if you actually have it in front of you. So you go to How Do I Apply tab, and this is the whole application, all the documents needed for your board packet. So if you start, let's start on the right-hand side. Everything in the right-hand side, we'll go through security clearance verification. It's something that S2 usually provides you from your security section. Just note, use the one on our website because they usually will give you a memorandum and we will not accept it. You'll have your physical form. The DA Form 160 says application active duty. All right, and the reason for that, we'll get back to it, but just note that you have to fill out that form unless you're currently not in the active duty enlisted. All right, or so. But definitely read the form and we'll get to it. Stable understanding, you will need a DD Form 368 if you're from a sister service or any Army National Guard or Reserve component. The red report is to verify your GT score. So if you're from sister service, definitely contact me in regards to that. And then the tattoo validation memo. So if you're coming from sister service, you will need to validate just like when you went through MEPS. And remember, applying to the Warrant Officer program is like joining the military all over again, going through MEPS. So you need to validate all your tattoos, and then you will need exceptions if they're outside the Army's 670-1 regulation on tattoos. So waivers, ETP requests. Just note, the board will not ever see any documents on the right-hand side. These are just supporting documents to make sure that you're administratively and legally qualified. You will need your DA Form 705. That's where you take the APFT. And that's an exception for sister service that if you're applying now, you can take the APFT after 1 October if you're sister service. I only need your DA Form 705 if you're sister service. But if you're over the height and weight for any branch or any service, you will need to attach that and then your checklist. So now we're going to the board packet to the left-hand side. This is everything, 8 items, unless you're applying for aviation, 9 particular different documents that you'll need in order to apply. So the board packet, the DA Form 61 is your application, but also tells your AFS once you sign it. Your 3.3 is your letter of recommendation, and 3.2 is your resume. The most 2 important documents, because these are forms that have not been written. Your SRB or service record brief or equivalent that has all your military duty stations, all the schools you've done. Those that should be in your personnel file or for the Army IPERMs. Your evaluation, 1059s or AARs from your schools that you've been to, leadership schools. Just remember, it has to be descending order from newest to oldest, all right? So 2021, 2020, 2019. Your college transcripts can be official or unofficial. And you can attach professional certificates if you want to. I would always attach things that apply to that Warrant Officer MOS or anything that's going to make your packet, more competitive, not like Combat Lifesaver. You probably won't need that. And then you'll need your score sheet once you pass your score. Any questions here? All right, so you obviously cannot read this. So that's why I'm going to go through this, the main points. So your DA61, the biggest mistake most people will make is it's going to ask you to mark either active duty or reserve for Warrant Officer. You will mark Warrant Officer Army Reserve. And the reason for that, there is no W1 billets in active duty. So it's just a temporary status. So once you pin W1 after the 2-year probational period, as a tech, you would get promoted CW2. As an aviation side, after you go through flight school and you're that 2-year probational period, then you'll get promoted CW2. The only reason you wouldn't get promoted CW2 is because you did something stupid. You beat up a lieutenant or you got in trouble or something crazy happened, right? Just like in the Army E1 and E4, it's automatic promotion. So everything in DA61, you can apply up to 3 different Warrant Officer MOSs. You list it in the orders of precedence of what you want to be selected for, not numeric order, like 153 Alpha, 352 Sierra, 420. Put it in the order of what you really want to get picked up for. You don't have to apply to 3 different Warrant Officer MOS. Only what you're willing to do and what you want to apply for. And Block 20 is going to ask you if you're a U.S. citizen. Block A is going to ask are you a native. It's not asking if you're a Native American, just are you born in the U.S. or you're not. Or if not, then Block B is going to ask if you're naturalized or derive naturalization. All right, if you're not a citizen, U.S. citizen, remember you cannot apply. And in Block C, that's where you'll put your naturalization certificate number or where you derive your naturalization, and that certificate number would be there, the place where you received it, and the date. So we're going to move to page 2. Just know this is the main thing. So if you have a fine that you're guilty of $100 or more for a traffic ticket, you will have to list that, and that will require you to have a conduct waiver, and that's going to be in Block 26. So if you have any tickets since you were born to now, anything that you have Article 15 or anything where the fine is greater than $100 or any moral questions, please contact me directly about your situation. So we get to page 3. Block 41 is if you have a GED or don't have a GED. I mean, if you have a GED, that's where you're listed. If you had a maiden name change, like some of your certs, if you're married and you're divorced and you have different certs with different names, you'll annotate that also. But really, the main thing should be in here for most people should only be your APFT blurb, where it's going to say that you took the APFT, you scored XYZ on day, month, year, and you got a verified height and weight. Your commander is going to sign it, and your commander signature block, and then you make sure the date, and you'll sign this application. Just note, all our forms are, if you click and download this example form, it's going to all be pre-filled out. So you're not going to have to recreate anything. Just plug and play your information. And all your forms can be hand signed or wet signed. But your letter recommendation, which is the next form we're going to go over, that's the only form that has to be digitally signed. But real quick, does anyone have any questions here? And I just missed it, but Interservice, if you're getting the APFT, it must be graded by Army E5 or higher if you're Interservice, right? And if you have any questions about that, just contact me directly. All right, letter recommendation, this is really important. So the main thing about this is that letter recommendations, you can have up to 6. There's only 3 mandatory ones. The first 2 has to come from your first level of UCMJ. So usually in a conventional unit, usually you have like your company commander, your battalion commander, and that's your first 2 levels of UCMJ. So if you got an Article 15, like if I have one, then those are the 2 people that would write it. Now sometimes you might work in the White House. If I'm in the Army, I might have a U.S. Navy commander, and then I might have an Army colonel. And if that's the case, you see joint or unique organizational LOR, ETP available. So just let me know if you're in that weird predicament or you have a sergeant major and your first 2 level UCMJ, and that's fine. As long as it's in the proper channels, those are who you need to receive LORs from. If you PCS, LORs are good for 90 days when you PCS. So if you PCS like 1 September and you got your LORs, they're only good for 90 days from the submission date. All right, so 90 days from LOR, and it has to meet the submission date. So make sure that your LORs are good for 90 days once you PCS. Generally, LORs are good for 1 year unless you PCS, right? So let's go to this. So you put your information on the top of the LOR, your organization information. So everything should be your information on top, not the person writing it, right? It shouldn't be like, John Doe, the rank is captain, right? It should be your rank and your information on top. And how long they known you, who they are, and if they're a senior warrant officer, company grade. If they're a major, you can put field grade, and then just make sure relationships applicant, put company commander. The main thing I'm looking for is not grammar, just administratively if your forms are filled out correctly. So in the narrative, the only thing I'm looking for is your person writing your LOR provided a phone or an email. Go to the bottom, make sure you put the information, their rank, and for warrant officers, it's really important on block 3 of section 4 that you put their branch and MOS, all right, and then make sure everybody digitally signs and have the date that they sign. Any questions? If you cannot find a warrant officer because you're going to aviation or you don't work with one directly, that's how you get in contact with myself, and I will always tell you to exhaust all options to find a Army warrant officer. And just note that the other three LORs you can get from can be anybody. It could be previous commanders. It could be somebody in other services, sister services. Just note, if your sister service, your first 3 mandatory LORs, right? Because the third one is going to be from a senior warrant officer. It all has to be on this form. And if you receive any other additional LORs, if it's from retired or sister service, they can use their own letterhead. But your first 3 that are mandatory have to be in the 3.3. It's optional if they want to use this form, but if they do, it has to be digitally signed. All right. Any more questions about LORs? Just let me know if you have any. All right. And your resume. So this is pretty much your information on top. You'll just follow pretty much everything on the website. Just make sure the name of the warrant officer MOS you list is the exact same name on the website. The only thing I look here is just make sure that if you have break-in service or any gaps, that it has a reason. But there shouldn't be any gaps in your experience. And if you have some for education stuff, that's fine. But for your military experience, there shouldn't be any gaps. The way you write your resume is going to be more like from your evaluation. So you're not copying and pasting word for word, but let's say I was in a warrant officer recruiting company. These are my scopes and duties, and you want to state what did you do there. So if you're junior enlisted, obviously you're not going to have evaluations. So this is a pretty important time for you to list that you were that E2, E3 that everybody went to in your section for XYZ. So this is a time that you can show your technical writing skills. So just remember, the resume could be the deciding factor if you get selected or not. Just because when you become a field grade warrant officer CW3, you'll start writing publications and doctrine. And if you scroll to the right to the section summary, just make sure you fill out your documentation, not the whole page. They have about 3 to 5 minutes to go over your whole packet. So I think 3 paragraph is good, or anything under half a paragraph. And just remember, the formatting for the section summary is more like a college writing. And when you're writing your LOR, just your resume, make sure you're not too cocky. Don't start off at, the reason I want to become a warrant officer is because you owe it to me. Some people write that, and it is crazy. Just make sure you also, you're not too humble where you sound like a supporting figure inside your resume. It has to have a balance of, that you got to be a little cocky, but a little humble also. And just get to the point, bottom line up front. If you write more than half a page, just remember they're looking for how does it technically sound. All right. Do you have any punctuation or any issues with that? Use Grammarly. It's a free app you can use. I used it, and it works perfect. And also find someone that writes better than you. That's the easiest way to get the resume done. And it's actually the hardest part of the packet. I'm actually submitting my own packet to this November board. So just note that I'm just telling you from personal experience of putting this packet together, and also other people I've dealt with. Any questions on this slide? All right, security clearance verification, pretty much your information on top. The security clearance data, it's going to say top secret or secret. I don't need it to say TS/SCI. So it's going to be top secret or secret, and you'll see the expiration dates from there on the right. So secret is good for 10 years. Top secret is good for 6 years. So if you need a resubmission date, it would be because it's getting ready to expire. So if I had a secret clearance in 2011, it should have resubmission date. So the example is right here on the slides. They're also on our website. Enrolled and continuing evaluation and the date. Periodic reinvestigation submitted and the date. And then your security manager, whether it be a civilian or a green suitor, a specialist, officer, whoever can verify it, that's where they put the information and they'll sign. And this is the only acceptable verification form for security clearances that we take. Anything else will be void and we get returned with corrections. Any questions? All right, your physical cover sheet. So the main thing I'm just going to point out, if you follow block E, this is the date that we use to determine when your physical expires. That date has to be within 6 months of when you submit it. Just note that, right? I know previously we had gave people leeway because of COVID, where we gave them up to 18 months, pretty long period of time. But COVID's kind of slowly going away, so everything's back to regular regulation. So for this, pretty much your information is on top on block A, your unit address and where you're currently stationed. Block B, a lot of people miss that. Block C is just your pulleys. And just note, some warrant officer MOS has a requirement for pulleys. And then block D, make sure that the provider fills this out. Just remember that if you're doing aviation flight physical or commissioning physical, this is the last sheet that you will receive after you do all your physical. And then block F needs to be filled out if you're applying for 150 alpha or 153 alpha. It has to have the date with the arrow stamp, which is on the DD form 2808, which I also need. And when it's stamped, a 1W is for enlisted, 1 alpha is for officers. And then block G is 3 different qualifications. If you're fully qualified, nothing to worry about. Look, if you have any questions about medical, look at in accordance AR 40-501 Chapter 2. And then if you have any questions about flight physicals, Chapter 2 and Chapter 4. Just remember, there's also a DODI, a DODI, that follows also officer succession, right? And that's the difference. You can have a CPAP machine right now enlisted, but becoming an officer might be a different story because you're trying to join, the officer sessions all over, like joining the military all over again, except with officer accession regulations. Now, if you're not qualified on block 2, not fully qualified, recommend waiver. If you need a waiver, it should be listed on block H, and there's a separate forwarding or routing that you have to submit. So if you submit your packet to us, you must submit your medical documents to a separate email listed on our website, and it's going to have everything for supporting medical documents you must send. So for your packet purposes, the only thing I need is your cover sheet. I don't need any other medical documents because of HIPAA. So your physician will sign, stamp, and don't forget the number. That's very common. If your physician doesn't have a stamp, you see that gray box right there. It says you need an MFR stating why that person doesn't have a stamp. And it's an easy MFR. You just don't have a stamp at this time or whatever reason. And that's pretty much the physical cover sheet. Any questions? All right, your application for active duty. The main thing about this, just note that if you see in block 8, it says items to be completed by personnel currently serving on active duty and a warrant officer or enlisted status. All right, so if you're not on active duty status, you don't have to fill out block 8. But you do have to fill out block 9, right? So, and it's listed there 6/10, and that's your ADSO, not how much time years you have left in your contract. So if you're applying for aviation, it'd be mark only 10. If you're applying for tech, mark 6. If you're applying for both, mark 6/10. All right, and you just look at block 10 on duty assignment, choice number 1. This is where you'll put, your warrant officer MOSs. You can put 1 in there, 2 in there, 3 in there, based on what you're applying for. But make sure you actually have something in there. And area assignment, make sure expectation management. Don't put something that you're not going to get stationed at, like Jamaica or somewhere weird that now you're just giving up a choice. Block 11 and 12, you just follow the same example. And this is the most important. As much as you want to be a warrant officer, do not forget about your family. So block 13 in remarks include essential assignment considerations. Like an example would be EFMP or married Army couple program. All right, make sure you don't forget about your family as much as you want to apply for this program. All right, and then you just sign and date. Any questions here? So this is the easiest form. So a lot of times with our memorandums, a lot of them will be supplied, and you just change the letterhead, the office symbol, and date. But this particular one, leave everything the same, change the date on the top right, read everything. This is your acknowledgement, just like if you go to any school that you're going to pass the physical fitness test, meet height and weight standards. But also this goes into addition to, conduct, tattoos, and then compliance. And then make sure you read it all. And the second page on the bottom right, make sure you sign. You put your name, your rank, and your MOS. And this is the easiest form. Any questions? All right, waivers and exception to policy requests. Just note that the way to plan to put your packet in is based on how soon you need to submit your packet, and it's based on if you need any waivers. So I'll just go them through. So age, active federal service goes to Department Army G1, 2 to 4 weeks. It's self-signed. All right, that's pretty common. Prereqs waiver, pretty common. It goes to proponent, 2 to 4 weeks, self-signed memo. Medical, USAREC G3 will get approved by the USAREC surgeon. Takes 2 to 4 weeks. So I would always go with the worst case scenario when you're reading this. All right. So if you got 3 waivers, I'll try to submit your packet 3 months ahead. And you can read along this. We do have the traffic offense table and major misconduct and regular misconduct that you can see and determine what kind of waiver you might need. Or any questions about waivers, just message me directly about your individual situation. And the main thing I will tell you on this slide, APFT/ACFT, the Department Army G3, G5, G7, the approximate turnaround time, we have no idea, due to the fact it goes through your unit and the process through S1 reaching to the second general officer. We have no estimated time. Any questions here? All right. So as I explained earlier, tattoo compliance validation. So if you're in a service, you do require this memorandum. So if you have a tattoo on your chest, and I get it, it's not above the wrist, or on a wrist bone and above it, or above your neck. All right. So usually, if you have any tattoos, including Army personnel, you usually will need a tattoo ETP. But this tattoo is just, are you in compliance or not? Where are your tattoos? If you have some on your legs, on your stomach and stuff, that's fine. All right, but you need an 05 to sign it, and make sure you have a color photo with ruler of length and width for each tattoo. So anybody that doesn't have any that needs an exception of policy, so these for Army applicants, right? But also, if you need an exception of policy, the example is on the right hand side. So basically, you list what you're out of regs for, and your 05 will sign, and then sample enclosures, this just means whatever you want to attach with it. And basically, this is just annotating all your tattoos that you have if you're out of regs when you become into the warrant officer cohort. And on the right-hand side, you'll list your tattoos, your measurements. Just remember, you do not have to put a tattoo removal plan in your tattoo exception of policy. But if you do, and it gets accepted, you're agreeing that you will have it removed before you go to warrant officer candidate school. Some proponents will tell you that they don't accept any tattoo ETP, and if you want to become a warrant officer in their field, you have to get it removed prior to even applying. So just keep that in mind. Any questions? All right. So exception of policy and waiver request for we're gonna go to the first document. This is for your age / active federal service or prerequisite waiver. If you need all three of them, two of them, they're going to be individually different memorandums. And all you can always state is what you exceed for age and active federal service. Why now? Why are you applying after 12 years active federal service? These is ways that you love being a leader, NCO, or equivalent to service, that you like leading soldiers, airmen, sailors, whatever it is you want to put in there. But it has to be more of a reason. You just can't put that you exceed 12 years AFS and you're requesting one. It will get denied. Make sure you have a reason for everything you put, and you'll just put your office symbol, your letterhead, and your date to where your actual unit is at. And that's pretty easy stuff. And look, any questions you have about this, just contact me. And in the middle is moral documents. The main thing is, if you look at the right-hand side, court action, police report, Article 15, letter of reprimand, affidavit, general officer endorsement, conduct waiver, case summary. Just contact me about your individual misconduct. If you're looking to apply and you need a waiver, and we can discuss what you'll need if you can't find it for some reason. I am a full-fledged recruiter, full-time recruiter, so I dealt with this prior in the other side of non-prior service. So I'm pretty good with waivers. So if you have any questions, just contact me. Any questions on these slides? All right, application checklist, put your name on top, warrant officer listed. And then the main thing about this is it must be completed by S1, OIC, or HR Tech. If you have a specialist only, that's fine. They can sign it. Your Sergeant Major or SEA is to certify the applicant is not on drill assignment instructions. That's only for the Army. And then your SEA, equivalent to a sergeant major in the Army, they'll sign it. So once you get drill sergeant orders, there's no combating that. Now, if you get recruiting orders in the Army, if you submitted your packet prior to getting recruiting orders, you could try to combat that, and that's between you, the branch, and HRC. And the last person to sign it is your recommending senior warrant officer, and that's usually the person that's in warrant officer MOS 1. Just note, S1 does not, or any admin section does not have to QC your packet. That's our job. They're just making sure S1 is no adverse action, you're not flagged, and that's pretty much it for this. Any questions? And just note that they can wet sign, hand sign. They don't have to digitally sign this. So this is an overview snapshot. So you submit, I'm level 1. I do all the admin stuff, and then we send you corrections. You send it back. And once everything's corrected, it goes to level 2. Just remember, after level 2 for any waivers and to level 3, there will be approving or disapproving memorandum. Level 2 is proponent. They're making sure technically you're qualified. If you need a prerequisite waiver, it will be approved. If for some reason it's disapproved, the waiting period is you have to wait to apply to the following board in order to apply. Unless you can somehow get something done, you'll work with proponent directly, and you guys can come on a game plan to try to make that board. Now for level 3, it's going to be misconduct waivers, traffic waivers. Those are easy. They're signed by our battalion commander, and his background is SF. So a lot of stuff usually he'll approve. You know, if you're young and dumb, if you're in Germany, you probably have something, or Korea, some kind of incident. We understand that, right? We're young, things happen. But for like major misconducts, and just note, just because you join with it in the Army or the military before, you still have to go through the same waivers because you're assessing all over again, but for officer sessions. And AFS, age, very common, and those and major misconduct get approved by DAG1. If you get any disapproval for AFS, age, major misconduct, you must wait a whole 12 months once you get the disapproval memorandum before you're able to reapply. For medical waivers, if you get disapproved, you can get a reevaluation at any time. There's no waiting period. A lot of times there will be notes on when you should reapply, unless you can show from whatever deficiencies you had with the medical waiver, and you can combat that. And that's just something you just contact us, and we try to help you figure out. Tattoo waivers, either to get accepted or to get denied. If you get denied, more likely or not, that means that you need to just get it removed before you can reapply. Once you go through all 3 levels, you will get a board ready status. This means that your packet is now ready to get looked at the following board. And just note, if your board ready status is the week before, like this week was the week where they had the board and it convened. If you submit it and now your packet was board ready last week, just remember, when people have board ready status, this is a first come, first serve. So if I'm aviation proponent, I might only want, for this board I dictate, I only want 60, because if I have anything more than 60, I'm going to make this board too competitive, and I'm not going to give everybody a fair shot. And the people that probably had good packets, I'm going to tell them that they're going to have to wait a year because they're not qualified, or go over to the next board because they're good enough, but wasn't that good enough. And we're going to get to that to the next slide. Any questions on this slide? All right. So selection board notes. So example, this board just convened 7 to 10 business days from Friday, which is either next Friday or the following business day would be Wednesday. They have up to release the MILPER message. It's going to be posted on HRC or our Facebook page. Go Warrant now. You'll see it there, and you'll know if you've been selected. There's 3 different categories. So let's go with the worst one. So if you're non-competitive, non-select for any board, right? So that means that you can get rollover twice for fully qualified non-select. But if you get that status for non-competitive, non-select, you must wait 12 months from the time you sign your DA-61, which is the first form you signed. And the reason for that just means that you need another NCOR. All right. If you're fully qualified and not selected, you will roll over to the following warrant officer board. That means you have one more chance. And just remember, the warrant officer board they have floodgates. Sometimes they open and accept a lot of things. Sometimes they close. But don't give up. If this is something you want to do, don't self-disqualify yourself. Find a way to get a better packet, and that's just talking with your warrant officers that write your LORs. So the good note would be, if you're fully qualified and you're selected, you get a 35 to 45 days after you've been selected, you'll get a notification from HRC with the ATAR's walk date. Walk dates can be anywhere between 6 months, 9 months, 13 months, just depends. Just like if you were at basic training and your job training, those things have to line up. and walks has been backed up. So just be prepared. Even if you got selected and you're supposed to be PCS, you can defer those orders, work with your branch, or go to your follow-on assignment, and then you'll go to walks. So here's the breakdown. If you're a tech warrant, you will go. All right. Well, I'll talk about sister service. You go through MEPS. When you get selected, you will go to MEPS and show them your 368 conditional release has to be good, and you'll have your packet, and you won't go through none of the physical portion, just the administrative. You'll sign for your walk dates, and in the meantime, you're just waiting around doing the same thing. You're still in the Marines, you're still in the Air Force until your walk date. When you have your walk date, the day before, you'll ship out, like you went through MEPS, you're shipping out. And the reason you need a DD-368 is so that they can go walk over to your branch and get a DD-214 so that you have no loss in time or time in service, right? And then you'll go to walks, and then you'll go to your warrant officer basic course, and then you'll get orders. All right, if your sister service, once you go walks, once you go through SEER, then you'll have orders to go to Fort Rucker, just like techs. Just like regular Army personnel. So if you're in the Army, if you're going to aviation, you would go to Warrant Officer Candidate School, SEER, come back, PCS with your family to flight school. And if you're a tech, you will go TDY to Warrant Officer Candidate School, Warrant Officer Basic Course, and return to your unit. And then you'll have your follow-on assignment. Any questions on that? All right. So the main key points is maintain situational awareness. Any questions you have with direct MOS questions, you can find all these things on our website, like I said. Or then again, you can always contact us, and if it needs to get that question moved to Proponent, then we'll give you instructions on how to contact them properly. Follow application submission instructions and naming conventions. Really important. Ensure your application is not encrypted. The email that you will send to submit your packet is an encrypted mailbox, so you don't have to worry about that. Contact recruiter for application status every 10 to 14 days until your board ready status. Just remember that if your sister service, you have to have your conditional release approved prior to you submitting your packet. And then if you need that GT conversion, which you will, if your sister service, just contact me and I can let you know about your GT score. Any questions? All right, so this is the contact us. Obviously, you can contact me directly, but for some reason you can't contact me. We cover the whole Army and all sister service with one company, but we're split up to 7 different stations. So everywhere usually has a 79 Romeo, like I'm in the Northeast, also collated at our company headquarters. And you can contact anybody for any questions. But since if you're looking at this presentation from this group, you can always contact me directly, and I can help you even if you're in Hawaii or whichever you're located, and if it makes sense that we can work together. All right, so this is my contact information, but also my team. So CW4 Gauss, he's transitioning out, and he's a mobility, and he's actually getting replaced by CW4 Graphite, and he's actually 882 Alpha, a mobility officer as well. I do work with Sergeant Poe. He's the same thing as me, a recruiter. And then Sergeant Lofton, she's counter intel, but she mainly works in operations. But if anything, questions you have, just contact me directly. If you're at Fort Bragg, you want to come visit me, I'm right there on El Salvador Street. And the best way to find us, just look up El Salvador Street without the numbers, and it'll take you to an empty parking lot. Make a left, go all the way down, and we're the last building on the right. That's our webpage and our Facebook. Go on there, like it, and we do update different statuses also, and it's usually along with any updates we make, usually on the webpage. But if you have any more questions, I'll answer anything you have. If not, this will conclude my briefing.
All right, thank you, Phu. Such wonderful information. And again, that QR code at the end, if folks would like to get some more information, go ahead and click on there. But yeah, thank you. That's a lot of information. And but if you are prepared, we have a few questions from our viewers that would like to know more information. So in the beginning, we have a question. I know it might be answered in our chat, but I want to ask you anyway. So An Vu asked, what if they get overlooked twice and can't make it to the next rank for both officer and warrant, and they don't have 20 years to retire?
Okay, so that's a common question that I face a lot. So they're talking about getting overlooked as a CW2 or just pretty much, yeah, you get 2 looks. And this is what I will tell you. So from working with different proponents, and they're all field grade, CW3 or higher, and I've spoken to CW5s, which is kind of rare in the Army, right? But I've talked to a lot of them. So a lot of times they don't get picked up because the promotion rate is almost 50%. From CW, is 80%, then you get CW4 is 50%, to CW5 it gets like 30%. So if you get overlooked twice, then they will tell you that you have to separate from the Army, and depending, some cases, very rare, they might allow you to finish your time in the National Guard or Reserves. But my main, I guess, advice for someone that's thinking like that, the average candidate that they really like is between 7 to like 10 years, right? That's a great time so that you can have enough time to make CW3 and also retire. So a lot of times you will get told, even when I was a private, that, hey, you shouldn't apply to become a warrant officer, because if you don't make it twice under your look, you're going to get kicked out. And that is very true. But this is my advice would be, look at the warrant officer MOS you're trying to apply to. If it's a really small MOS, like I give you an example, my MOS, warrant officer MOS, would have been 125 Delta if I was in my old current MOS. A CW3 is like a CW5 to us because we're so small. So just really look into that. And the best advice would talk to local warrant officers and find out in their field that you're trying to go into, what is the trend? Why aren't people getting picked up? I've been told from CW2, CW3, people usually don't get picked up because the records are messed up, just easy things, or they get in trouble. That's like the first 2 common things I hear a lot. But definitely talk to your warrant officer that you're trying to get into that field, and they'll have a better answer for you based on that warrant officer and what you're trying to apply to.
Okay, perfect. And we got another comment here from Tuấn Fan. It says, "Good luck, Surfers Class Chan." For I think when you're referencing your put in packet in November to go warrant.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Thanks, I appreciate it.
So there's another question here from other viewers. So how long is a typical warrant school? Is it depending on the career of chosen path, or is it a similar basic course and then to into the career class?
Okay, yep. So I can answer that. So the only long class is going to be Aviation 153. It's about 18 months, and then you have Cyber, which is a new MOS, which I would encourage, if you're in IT, definitely apply to that. But that's new. That's 18 months as well, and they're very similar in applying. But for every other tech, it's about 2 to 3 months. And the other one that's pretty long would be the boat warrant. It's 9 months, the 880 field, but they do have a high fallout rate. Just note that if you apply there, just make sure you come prepared. But everything is usually about 2 to 3 months. The warrant officer basic course that I would go to as a 270 legal administrator is 2 months long. And just remember, warrant officer candidate school is 5 weeks. So that's about a month and a half. If that answers the question.
Okay, so you can spend almost 2 years just in schooling.
Oh yeah. If you're doing it for flight or the cyber, but everything else, it's 3 months, 4 months, you'd probably be gone.
Okay. Now, do you need some type of college degree to become a warrant?
You do not. You'd be surprised that the most college that you might actually need for about, I'd say 80% of the warrant officer MOSs is 6 English college credits. And maybe some other ones might ask you for 3 college credit of algebra. So college does make a difference later on when you're actually at the board. but just to apply, a lot of times, you know, even if you don't have it, they might waiver it. So I'll tell you right now, the warrant officer MLS that they're really hurting for is 948 or your 94 series. They pretty much give waivers for everybody for all kinds of different reasons for prerequisites. And yeah, you really don't need it, but it does help you become competitive. So one thing I didn't really mention about, since we're on the college topic, is that you want to make sure your stuff's like, if you, I think, I forgot what it's called, but you got to make sure you transfer if you have a degree that's foreign. Make sure you get it, accredited, evaluated. I think I can't remember the program not the program, but I forgot what it is. But this, you could pay somebody to transfer your stuff to make sure it's credited to US. That's really important. And the board is usually about 5 CW5s from 46 different specialties, and they don't have a regular AAR, just like for I guess for like officer sessions or enlisted to E7, E8. There's no AAR feedback because they don't want to drive the force to change their career path. Like, hey, we need everyone to become an instructor. That's who we picked up. So there's not any AAR feedback, but also just note that the person sitting on the board may not be the warrant officer MLS that you're applying to. So each warrant officer MLS has different ideologies of what a candidate should be, but they all have to have some kind of agreements to what the philosophy is for the board. So just like if you were to select the best new soldier you're gonna get, or NCO, you would have your own criteria. So some people care about more about college, some care about a PT tests, some people care about what schools you've been to, or if you had a tab, like Ranger tab, or if you're SF and you're applying to certain things. Just remember there's different dynamics that makes up, but also you're only competing with the people that apply to the board. And I'll give you an example. So if you're in a parachute rigger or equivalent to sister service, and fiscal year 20 for 921, they needed 10 packets. They only got 10 packets, and all 10 people made it. So it's very based on what you're applying to. But definitely college, you really don't need that much. I've seen people get picked up with just having 6 college credits, the minimum. Just remember, they care more about your technical experience than they do college. Now, if your college could substitute for NCORs or civilian experience too, they keep that in consideration. But when a proponent sits down, they look at the whole technical qualifications, civilian experience, your college classes that you take in, if they're in STEM or something related to their field.
Okay, perfect. I think that's some great information there. Yeah, I do know some warrant officers that have super duper intelligence, and they have from bachelor's degree all the way to PhD, and obviously it depends on the career field. So then you mentioned, so there's a question you mentioned about in the Army, aviators have warrants and they fly helicopters. But can warrant officers in other services fly, or do they or are they pilots eligible?
Okay. So from what I know, the Army obviously, like Marines has their own pilots, but their warrant officers, we're the only one that has warrant officers that really specify in flying. A lot of times for like Air Force, Navy, and Marines too, their pilots are commissioned officers. So a lot of times we get a lot of people from sister service, from Marines, and the Navy that come on over here because we mostly fly rotary wing. We do have very few. I'm gonna say it's like super rare to fly fixed wings, but a lot of time it has to be offered in your class when you're going to flight school, or you serve in 160th and something out of nowhere. Hey, there's a position. So a lot of times there's not really that many fixed wing opportunities in the Army.
Okay, perfect. All right. So you mentioned a few good qualities of a warrant officer. So here's a question. As far as making promotion, and also make sure that you falls into the right career field. So what makes a good warrant officer?
Okay. I can only speak to experience, but I think next time I will try to invite a guest that actually is a warrant. So for me, I worked in MI, like geospatial, and I worked with engineering and some different fields in my previous career fields. But also now here, and the people I usually work with are all field grade warrant officers, and the main thing is that a warrant officer is a continued learner. They're always curious to learn. And this is the difference between enlisted and warrant officers. You go run a marathon and everyone give you a high five in the enlisted side. As a warrant officer, they're going to look at you and ask you, did you get your master's degree? What are you doing running a marathon? All right. So you have to be a continuous learner, an innovator, learning to use systems and integrate new technology. Like I said, they keep them long in the military because of the experience, but also as technology evolves, they're learning how to incorporate this into their fields. Warrant officers, they're always finding, like, they're the ones that are writing different things in the schoolhouse, changing the way you learn, changing the way we incorporate new equipment, or new best practices within your field. So as long as you're always willing to learn, because remember, they're a subject matter expert. I think that is like the greatest quality, and that's what they look for, is somebody that's always wanting to learn and stay within their field. Just note, they do not want people that did not get promoted to E7, or did not make the next rank and want to apply. That's that's the trend right now. A lot of people that are not getting promoted to E7. I understand the OML for the Army is not the best right now, but they don't want people who can't make E7 and they're just hating it, right? They want people to actually enjoy their job and actually want to train others. And just because you were a NCO and you're tired of it, or a leader E5 and up, as a warrant, you're still going to be in a leadership position. So sometimes people forget that. So not only, like I said, if you read some of the titles, they're trainers and advisors, and also combat leaders. So just don't forget that, as much as they are a technical expert, they're like super NCOs, but more so in their craft is the best way I can explain it. So you have to really love your field and love what you're doing. And that's the reason that kind of separates commissioned officers and warrants. But if you don't know, there is functional fields or functional areas as officers that's equivalent to like a warrant officer. But mainly as a warrant officer, you are always at the schoolhouse. You always with your actual expertise. And they have training with industry. And like I said, you got to be a person of life learning. Like, you want to stay in that field.
Perfect. All right. I think that that's a great answer, and also a great segment to the end of our conversation. So based on, I don't see any other questions. I think you've answered all of the question from our viewers. So thank you very much, Phu. Again, the folks, if you are interested in learning more about how to become a warrant, especially in the Army, contact Phu, and I know he'll be able to help guide. Now, for other services, we may have to fill out the questions and get into our network groups, so we can find out a better process for folks. But I know I do know, based off of what I'm hearing and feeling, that most folks are wanting to become warrant. And so again, for the Army, Phu, you're it. Now for Navy and Air Force, we may have to gather some other resources. But let's see, I don't have any other questions. Now, do you have any other last comments for the group before we close off the meeting?
Definitely, you can contact me, whether it's warrant officer, or any other things. If you're looking to commission, OCS, Green to Gold, I'm familiar with those programs. Or if you're looking to get information about AMED, or the Army Enlistment Commissioning Program, AECP, for nursing, pretty much anything that deals with broadening assignments, career opportunities, or even if you're looking to transition out of the Army and go Reserve or National Guard, there's a lot of great programs. Just remember that there's a lot of information in the Army is based on who you know. So I definitely would encourage you to find more human resources and share what you know, because it's a common thing I think in the military that a lot of people just don't know information because nobody knows where to find it.
Perfect. Well, thank you for that. So Staff Sergeant Nguyen said, thank you for sharing the information. First class Chan. So you actually do have a pretty good few admire on the viewers here. But thank you, Anh Phu, and thank you, Anh Hiền Dom, for setting up this education series. Again, we try to do this monthly. We just haven't been able to find the right topic, but we're able to put on a few topics for a few months ahead. But for our viewers, just a remind, VA USA will have our yearly gala in Dallas, October 30th of 2021. So this will be a huge gala. We took a sabbatical 1 year off due to COVID, and now we're back in October. So this would be a great segment into what we're trying to do as an organization. We are conquering the future. We have a great guest speaker from folks from the Army Futures Command to folks from the Public Health Service, and our theme will be conquering the future, because what we're doing is trying to build leaders of tomorrow, the leaders of sons and daughters of America, to lead and also to lead not only America, but also the Vietnamese community here that we dear and cherish. At the same time, we will recognize our scholarships recipients that we provide monetary to our near and dear from our Fallen Heroes Scholarship Program, which is a yearly endeavor for us, and we will continue that. So this year we have 13 folks that were awarded, students that were awarded this scholarship, and we can't wait to present that at our gala. And again, we have a red carpet. Folks will come in and take pictures. We will have super guest speakers. We will have live interviews. We'll have other great activities for our guests and also for your family members. So if you haven't registered, go please and register on our Facebook page, on our website. Contact our registration team so they can get you registered. Right now, we plan to have a huge presence in Dallas, and so again, thank you everybody for tuning in, and thank you Anh Phu for all the information. So tune in for our next education series, maybe not next month, but because we're planning doing the gala, but continue on to November. So again, thank you everybody, and see you next time.